日本ではインテグラル理論の本が、今訳されたりして、結構みんなに知られてきてるんですけれども、なんか発達にはそのラインって言っていろんな種類の発達があるって言われてるんですが、この教育の発達っていうのは、これってラインですかっていうふうに質問する人がいると思うんですけれども、アビエールさんはそれはどうやってお答えされますか？
the the development of the educator itself, perhaps, or even maybe the learning style of an individual. I would say maybe partially so, and maybe not in general, because I think well, maybe the way to answer the question is sort of a both and response. So yes, and I think very possibly, we have lots of different lines of development, different areas we can be more developed in, and there's something particular and unique, let's say, to the development of an educator, maturing in our capacities to teach, to mentor students, to engage in the teaching learning process. So I think so, but I would say, but my own sense is that it reflects more of the whole person development as they develop. But I think it's also important, and it makes me so curious about how you're working with development in a Japanese cultural context, because every cultural context, of course, is going to express these stages of development differently. And I think about some of my work in different cultural contexts in Ethiopia, for instance, which is a more collective oriented culture. The iterating pattern between collective that we see in the stages model between a more collective stage and a more individual stage looks different in that context. It's easier for people to move into the collective stages and a little bit harder to express the individual in contrast to or different from the group. And it makes me curious. I wonder about how you're experiencing this in Japan.
そうですね。私はアビゲイルさんの、コースにいくつか参加させていただきましたけど、本当に世界から、たくさんの人たちがもう参加していて、これは本当に普遍的な、理論だなというふうに思っています。で、そういう意味では、
Yeah,
そうですね。もちろん日本の文化で、集合的な意識もあるけれども、それっていうのは、ケンウィルバーが言うタイプのところが確かにあるんだけれども、ステージっていうものが、その文化のタイプによって、存在しないってことはなくて、タイプはタイプの特徴としてあるけれども、レベルっていうのはやっぱりあるんだろうなというふうに思います。
yeah, so it's an interaction between these different elements. I know that, Terry O'Fallon sometimes uses the metaphor of the developmental stages are like a deep structure, like the skeleton in our body, but then how the body expresses itself through the muscles and the skin is unique to context, maybe unique to different types as well as cultural context. So I think so, and I'm just fascinated about the commonalities, but also the differences in that way.
ありがとうございます。
Mm.
そうですね。今、教育の話も出たんですが、今回、アビゲイルさんは、リーダーシップのこういう本も、出されていて、他の人とも一緒に書いてるものなんですけれども、このリーダーシップについての、リサーチと、その教育のリサーチっていうのはまた全然違うものなんですか？
Yes, happy to. Yeah, my work is, as I was mentioning, I teach in higher education, but I also teach with a company called Pacific Integral, and we do a leadership development program called Generating Transformative Change. And it's not an academic program, although sometimes we have graduate students in the program. It's a 9-month program that is supports people's personal and professional development in relationship to their work in the world. And so it cultivates their leadership development. And we integrate. Terry O'Fallon was also one of the original founders. Thomas McConkey has been faculty with the program, so some connections there. But we integrated developmental framework into both how we hold the program and also how what we teach in terms of frameworks. And actually, we've done quite a bit of research through that program to look at how do people grow developmentally. Within the context of the program, we do a pre-developmental assessment, and then one every 2 years after that. We've been doing longitudinal research and learned a lot about how people grow and develop, and also how that development relates to this particular program. And also, what does that mean in terms of their leadership, how they show up in the world with others and their work?